Okay, guys. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm finally getting to the last 20 years of my life after I moved down to the coast. And I met up with a girl, Claire. She and myself moved in together. We actually moved in into the granny flat at my mother's house for a while. And I had a couple of ex-boyfriend's friends in Johannesburg, which is about a 7-hour drive away from the coast, who were still paying a lot of my bills. Um, Claire was at the time still selling drugs, and we were doing okay. We always had food, we always had drink, we always had drugs. We used to party a lot. We used to go out dancing at clubs at least 4 or 5 nights a week. Um, at the time, we thought that our lives was very exciting and glamorous. We didn't realize that we were actually embarrassing ourselves and throwing our names away because we weren't acting like ladies. We were wearing very revealing clothing, um, basically, to be honest, sleeping around and using a lot of different drugs, drinking a lot from the morning, getting our second bottle usually by the time we fetch my son from school, and thinking that we were so cool. But actually, if looking from the outside, we probably looked like two little sluts, alcoholic drug addicts who have no hope in future. And that's probably what the outside world were thinking. But in our heads, we were the coolest chicks in the whole world. Anyway, we lived at my mom for quite a long time. Yeah, there's another very interesting story about how we had ghosts living in that house. So, um, I will tell that story one day. But then, yeah, we were actually too scared to eventually go into our main bedroom, and we used to sleep in the lounge because there was definitely something very scary happening. um, but yeah, it was probably started as attached to us because we were living a crazy life. We didn't realize at the time. And so from living there, we moved into a couple of other flats together in the basic area. We lived up and down the coast. For anyone, if it means anything, between Amanzimtoti and Durban, which is like an hour's drive. Durban is more of the main city. We lived in between there. On and off for a few years. And then what happened was, while we were still living at my mom, my two boyfriends in Johannesburg both stopped giving me money, and Claire stopped selling drugs because she got arrested. So, as I said before, my exact details and my exact timing is not perfect, or maybe a little bit out, but I'm hoping that she and other people will bear with me and realize that it is because, of all the years of drug abuse and alcoholism. But I'm sticking to the facts as close as I can. Okay, so Claire met a guy who she fell in love with, and I met a guy who I fell in love with. So I actually started spending more time with my boyfriend. She started spending more time with her boyfriend, and eventually she moved out with moved in with him. I moved down eventually to go live with my grandmother down the coast for a few years, and she helped me a lot with my son because I was out a lot. I was working. Okay, so to get back, okay, so let's go back to when Claire and myself met, and we just absolutely became best friends. Never anything weird or sexual. We very much liked men, but we were very, very close, and we just clicked in every single way. And after a while, when our money had dried up, we were so used to a certain kind of lifestyle of having the alcohol and the drugs and whatever food we wanted to and whatever we wanted to. We had a car at that point and petrol and all that. And we started looking for jobs. We applied for a couple. Neither of us had really any experience with working. I had been married and divorced. I'd never really worked before. The only experience I had was with um, holistic healing and aromatherapy, reflexology, all the um, the aromatherapy oils, all that kind of stuff. That was what I was into at that point. But um, yeah, we couldn't seem to find any work, and we saw an advert in the paper for a very upmarket massage parlor who needed therapists. So we went through. It was a very upmarket house, very, very posh and smart. And he went into the main office and he sat with the lady who was wearing, like a suit and very prim and proper. And he sat and chatted to her, and she showed us her massage had um, special infrared lamps and um, all kinds of equipment and special oils and whatever. So it looked very, very upmarket and real. But it turned out that it was a front, that it was actually a most of the business was undercover sexual work. Let's just say massage with a happy ending. So we had a choice of doing a hand happy ending or a full house, which with a full house you made quite a lot more money. So we thought, okay, well, we've run out of money, and at that time we were quite heavy on the drugs again, and so we thought, well, they said just stay for one day and try, and the people are really nice, and the men were very, very nice and sweet, and didn't push us into doing anything we didn't want to do, and gave us extra tips. So after the first day, after making a few thousand rand each, we thought this was amazing, and we just, it was hard. It was especially hard for her because she was 10 years younger than me. So, yeah, it was quite a traumatic experience for the first few days. But then we just blocked it off because we made a lot of money, and we just started doing more and more drugs. So, but when we went to work, we took a 6-pack of ciders with us, which we would drink throughout the day. And by the time, we reached lunchtime or whatever, we would buy a bottle of brandy or whatever, and we would carry on drinking it through the day. So by the time we got home, we were pretty tipsy, buy another bottle, and then we'd drink that, and then we'd go out dancing and taking ecstasy and whatever. And then quite a few times ended up going and spending a couple of days at a friend's house or at home smoking crack. So, yeah, basically that was our life for sure. How long were we at that house? It was a very upmarket area, very upmarket house. We made a lot of money. And then the man that I was living with found out what I was doing, and he was devastated, and he left me, and I was devastated because I loved him with all my heart. It was absolutely heartbreaking. Anyway, and then so basically, she stopped working for a while because she got a hell of a fright because her boyfriend also basically found out, and yeah, there's just a huge drama with this whole story. Oh my goodness! So from the first house, I actually got told about another house where you put your ads onto the internet. There's a few internet sites where you put up your picture and default name, and you put up, I am whatever, 5'8" and skinny and whatever, describe what you look like and what you do and what you don't do and how much you charge. And yeah, and then you get the calls from those men, and from those internet ads, we could charge double what we were charging at the other house, as people who the men would just walk in and choose between the 6 or 7 girls who were there. So we had our own private ads that the men would come specifically for us, and they would pay in the regions of 600 rand for half an hour or something, yeah, which is a lot of money. So I'm talking now about 20 years ago. This is 20 years ago when this was happening. So I worked with a few very upmarket girls, very beautiful girls, in one of these houses for a while. I actually worked in 3 or 4 different places. But then I started dating one of my friends who I was working with, brother. And he said to me, why don't she and I get a place together? And then we don't, because every client that we had to give the house 100 rand. So instead of paying five or like 500-600 rand a day, depending on how many clients, we could keep that extra money if we got a flat. So we got a very fancy flat in Durban with a jacuzzi and 3 bedrooms and overlooking the ocean and the harbor, and we had 2 flats, actually one after the other, and we made a lot of money and we spent a lot of money. But then we were at that stage smoking crack every single night after work. Even sometimes, if she had done 2 clients and I'd done 2 by lunchtime, we would phone the dealer and we would just smoke. And then I was too paranoid to work after that, but she was able to still carry on, and she would then work some more and make some more money and would carry on smoking. So yeah, we we smoked just about every day for sure 10 years. So yeah, that was my life. I ended up, after the second flat that I lived with her, we ended up having a huge fight, and I moved back to my mom. By that stage, I was nearly 40 and realized that I could no longer carry on doing, what I had been doing, especially at my mom's place in the little cottage. It would have just been disrespectful. So I started going back to doing the aromatherapy, reflexology, whatever, but it didn't make money doing it as just that. It just wasn't well known enough. It wasn't the kind of thing that people paid money for. So I did it for men who wanted a real massage, but they wanted a happy ending too. And they were too scared, men who were too scared to actually go to the full house story because they were scared of AIDS, or because I felt bad about their wives or whatever. So I had 3 or 4 clients a day, which was more than enough for me at that stage, because I'd cut down a lot on the drugs because, um, you know, it was more my friend who was into the drugs than I was. So I'd cut down quite a lot. So I was making yeah, enough money to buy my drinks, my drugs, which went from every day to once a week. So once a week, I would buy enough for the whole night, and I would smoke all night, and then sleep the next day. Take a whole handful of sleeping pills or tranquilizers, and then make sure it was a time I'm not working, and then carry on working a couple of days later. So I was doing massage with happy endings from when I was about just before 40. And yeah, so that's what I was doing for a couple of years. And then what happened was I met a guy who was actually dating a friend of mine, and they broke up, and he and I started dating. So he made me stop working. He and I moved in basically straight away together. He moved in with me after about a month of going out together, and he made me stop working, and he made quite a lot of money. So he paid for all the bills. He also was a crack addict, so he paid for our drugs. But he was also quite violent and aggressive. He was a really nasty person. He was always very verbally abusive. And after not very long, after about 2 years, I decided that I couldn't deal with this. One day he lost his temper and he smashed the sliding door, which was made out of glass, with his fist. He had blood pouring everywhere, and I just lost it. I said, that's it, I'm going. I phoned a friend of mine, and she said she was happening to go to Cape Town, which is a really beautiful town. I'm sure most people know where Cape Town is. Very far away from where I stay, but we decided to go there because she went there every 6 months to go work, and she charged a lot of money. She'd go there and work for, say, 6 months and then come back and not have to work for the next 6 months because she made so much money. So I went with her. And for the first 3 months, everything was fine. We made a lot of money. We moved from place to place, hotel to hotel, very upmarket, very beautiful. We traveled up and down the Cape Coast, incredibly stunning. But then she started having withdrawals because she was on crystal meth. And I don't know if it was from that she was doing crystal meth behind my back, because I know that it made her aggressive when we were at home, or if she was withdrawing. But she got to a point where she actually started attacking me physically as well as verbally, and doing crazy things like locking me out of the flat for hours at a time when I was expecting a client and stuff like that. So eventually I couldn't stand it anymore, and I took my last money. I booked myself into another hotel. And I left her a note. I said, I'm leaving. I can't deal with you anymore. You are insane, and I cannot live under this fear anymore. And I thought I could make it on my own. I thought I could stay there another 3 months and make it on my own and make enough money. Unfortunately, I booked into a place where they made it very clear. It was obvious from as I walked in, and I just spent my last money. I think it was I'd actually paid it for a week up front. That was not the kind of place that you could work from. So I sat there with no money, and and not being able to work. And that's when I started drinking really heavily. I was very, very sick, and it started to get winter in Cape Town. It's freezing. And I was stuck in this place. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to get to the places where you needed to get to. I didn't know the right hotels where you could go stay at. And basically, I just drank myself into a stupor every day until I was at a point where I knew I was going to die, because I was like coughing up blood all the time for days at a time. And then basically, then I ran out of money to stay there, and they kicked me out. I was on the pavement standing there with my bags in the middle of winter, and luckily one of my clients in Cape Town, because I'd been there about, by that stage, 4 months, really liked me, and I phoned him and I said, listen, please, I'm in trouble. I need you to come pick me up. And he came and picked me up, and he let me go stay at his farm just outside of Cape Town for about 2 months. He let me stay there while I recovered, because he could see I wasn't well. And he was very kind. He looked after me. He gave me enough alcohol just to keep me going, just so that I wouldn't be sick. But he tried to, try to get me back to semi-health. And then as soon as I was basically not dying anymore, he said, listen, I'm sorry, but this isn't going to work between us, because I thought maybe he and I were going to end up together. And he said that he doesn't want to be with, obviously, somebody like me, an alcoholic, drug addict, crazy person. So he gave me money to just keep me going for a few days. I went and I worked somewhere else for a few days, but it didn't work out. And eventually I just phoned my mother and I said, please send me money. I need to get back home. She sent me money for a ticket. I got a taxi to the airport and I went back home. Got back home, got a taxi back from the airport to my mother's house. And she saw me and she just said, oh my gosh, you look so bad. And then I'd been home about 2 days, and I'd gone already and bought a bottle, actually a few bottles of alcohol, and stuck them under the bed. And it had been about 2 or 3 days, and the alcohol was running out, and I didn't know what to do because I had no money. It was down to my last cents, and I was running. I think I was smoking my last cigarette in the garden. And the next thing, my friend Claire, who I had been partying with from the beginning, who I first moved in with, who she and I used to party so hard together, came to my rescue. And yeah, so there's a huge part of the story which is missing, which I need to add on to that. Um, in this time, about 6 years before I got saved, Claire and her boyfriend got saved and then got married. From being poor, having nothing, drug addict, alcoholics, they worked their way up to owning their own house, owning their own car. Somehow, after all the arrests and everything, they still managed to get their passports, get their IDs, go overseas on holiday. It's only God. It's just God because they're so faithful. Their testimony is unbelievable, but yeah, they will have to tell their testimony. But they just were faithful and worked their way up and cried every day that they, couldn't have their drugs and drink, but stuck to it because they had a strong revelation that they had to follow the Lord. They both at the same time at different places had something happening to them that signs that they need to change their lives. And anyway, they gave their hearts to the Lord a couple of days later, and they became very strong Christians and actually leadership in their church. So Claire still tried for years to try and get me to come to church with her and to get saved and stuff. And I didn't know about God. I didn't know about Jesus. I didn't care, and I didn't think there was anything else except for the life I was living. I didn't think it was possible to live any other kind of life. So I just kind of laughed her off every time she tried. So eventually she kind of, I only tried very occasionally and I didn't see much of her. But then for a few weeks she was getting this premonition, there's something wrong with Lara. I have to go see her. I have to go see her. And I just got back from Cape Town, and my mom said to me, listen, you better find a place to stay because I cannot deal with this. And Claire came around and said to my mom, she rang the bar and said, I'm looking for Lara. Do you have any idea where she could be? And my mom said, actually, she just got back from Cape Town. Please, can you come inside and talk to her because I don't know what to do with her. Because the night before, I'd gotten terribly drunk at the next door neighbors and fallen into the swimming pool. I had a black eye. I was finished. And Claire took one look at me and started crying, and she said she's never seen me looking so absolutely awful. By that time, I was skinny. I was covered in bruises. Yeah, really, it was not a good sight. And then she said, okay, I'm coming to pick you up next weekend. The next weekend, she came and picked me up. And we went to her mom with a whole lot of her friends. They prayed for me around the clock for a couple of days. I was just sick, throwing up and throwing up and throwing up. I think a lot of it was getting rid of all the addiction demons. Anyway, eventually after the weekend, we went back to her house, and her pastor came over eventually that evening because she told him it was an emergency. And he said to me, will you give your heart to the Lord? I had a bucket next to me because I was throwing up so badly. This is 3 days later. All I'd done is throw up. I hadn't eaten nothing. Yeah, I was very, very ill. And I said, I'll do whatever you want to, but then you take me to hospital afterwards. And so I said whatever he said after him. He prayed a whole lot of prayers for me. And from that moment on, after he finished praying and left, I was absolutely fine. I managed to stand up, which I hadn't been able to do for the whole day, walk to the kitchen, get some water, and then it's like Claire said, look, Lara, you've just walked to the kitchen and got some water. And it was a huge thing. And then I realized that I wasn't feeling sick anymore. I didn't have cravings anymore. And over the next couple of days, I realized all the cravings, all the sickness, all the addictions had gone. And over the next couple of weeks, I realized I didn't even want a cigarette. I didn't even want a drink. I didn't even want drugs. And then Claire started talking to me about the Lord. And yeah, it just so much happened after that in such a short space of time. Within a couple of weeks, I'd gotten baptized. Her husband baptized me at their local church because he had gotten to leadership in the church and he was doing the baptizing. So he baptized me, so I was filled with the Holy Spirit, and that pushed any other alcoholic demons out of me. And from that moment, I went to church as often as I possibly could. I started reading the Bible. I started just giving myself over to the Lord, to learning more about Him, because I didn't know much about anything at all, really. And yes, that is my story. There's a lot more to tell. There's a lot more to tell about the things that happened after I got saved. I had an emergency operation a couple of years later where I nearly died, and the miracles around that is absolutely incredible. Money wise, I had no money whatsoever, and the miracles that happened, that I managed to live for the last, it's been just over 4 years now. I have been surviving without working. I couldn't work because I've never really worked in my life. I couldn't go back to the job that I was doing. I gave myself so over to the Lord that it, as far as I'm concerned, it's not okay to have sex before marriage. It's not okay to do any of the stuff that I was doing before. And before, sex was nothing. I would sleep with somebody just to, get a evening's worth of drugs or whatever. And yeah, or just for fun. If there's a pretty young boy at the club, you just have sex. Now, I will only have sex if I get married. And yeah, I did have one in the last 4 years. I thought I was in love with somebody. I thought that I was going to get married to him. I did sleep with him. I'm very disappointed because I wanted to be like a new born again virgin when I got married, but it was the devil, trying to steal from me, and it was a very honest mistake. So it's not going to happen again. I'm only going to have sex again on my wedding night. And yeah, so lots of other things that happened along the way. I think I told some of the stories a bit backwards and a little bit confusing maybe along the way, but any questions that you need to ask, you can ask, and there is a lot more to tell. I'm trying to condense it, and it's already nearly half an hour's worth of talking. But this is the shortest I can make it because these are just the main points of what happened. So thanks for listening. And yeah, God is good. He is so gracious. He has saved my life and in hell right now, because I know for a proven fact that there is a heaven and a hell. And I know that God delivers for a proven fact, because if it wasn't for Him, I would be dead right now, because I would have killed myself. And I would not have been able to get off, especially alcohol, without going to rehab. So, yeah, God is good and very faithful. And basically, I just want to say to anybody who is going through any addictions and don't know what to do and are ready to give up, to basically, if you haven't as yet, give your heart to the Lord. And if you have, then go and repent and go on your knees and apologize and say sorry and say, Father, I am prepared to stop if you will help me. And if you take one step, He will take 10 steps. But you have to work towards it. You have to fight every day. It's still a bit of a fight every day, but it's worth it. It is really, really worth it, because you get your life back. Anyway, that's enough for now, and I will carry on with my other stories at another time.